What's up, Digidestins? This is Kyle D, better known as RideMyAvatar, and today we have the results from the PPG Ultimate Cup, where, mulligans are allowed, so very interesting to see what the first event of the format looked like. So without further ado, let's get into this video and talk about it. So first off, let's talk about the decks that topped. So we have WarGreymon X, Venusmon Hybrid, WarGreymon X, WereGarurumon X, WereGarurumon X, Mastemon, Imperialdramon, WereGarurumon X, Gallantmon, Commandramon, WereGarurumon X, Setcon, Armor Rush, Mastemon, Armor Rush, and Setcon. Great job, everybody that placed. You did a great job bringing these decks in, and we'll probably see some development over next weekend as well. This weekend, actually, that we'll see what they kind of have going for the decks, and I'm excited to see what happens here. We really had some great players here, and great job getting your prizing and stuff like that. But it looks very diverse to me. There's not a lot of overrepresentation. The only deck that really kind of just overtook was the WereGarurumon X by 4. So it had 2 more than most of the other lists, but that's really good, and it looks kind of healthy for the format. And you can tell that it didn't take first. So Mulligan really does help out the other decks. WarGreymon, this has been like the first time it's had this many tops in a format that was a legal format, basically. Last weekend doesn't really count because that's not really a real format. But with Ultimate Cup showing mulligans, WarGreymon can actually do some crazy shenanigans. So first off, we'll talk about the first place deck. So first place was none other than WarGreymon X. We kind of know what the deck does from what it likes to do. It is OTK fashion, being able to shut off options as people are bringing more and more, option heavy based decks. It's really good to see what happens with this. Being able to shut them off and not let them activate is really important, but also having, where WarGreymon X antibody, being able to gain memory and bring it back to your turn, really important, brings some huge potential in that way. And if WarGreymon or X antibody in this Digi evolution, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with DP less than or equal to this Digimon's DP means this guy gets Unga Bunga big, and you have to answer him. If you can't, you're kind of in a rock and a hard place. But that's kind of just how that goes. We have Omnimon X antibody who helps game finish with this deck now. And that's really huge because it gives another removal, basically returning all your opponent's Digimon with the highest level to the bottom of this owner's deck in any order. And then when Digivolving, one attacking once per turn by placing one X antibody or level 6 from this Digimon's Digi-Evolution cards at the bottom of its owner's deck, reveal all your opponent's security cards, trash one of them, place the rest in your opponent's security stack face down, then your opponent shuffles their security stack. Really useful, very powerful, especially since your opponent gets to reveal the whole security stack, so this helps with online play as well. And, this is just blitz for game, and you just clear out house. Just very powerful deck. You're OTKing, you're applying pressure. I like the added piercer, so that if they do have a body on board, you can just pierce through it. So, as long as it's rested. So, I see where this deck is going, and I really do enjoy it. Boop. Next is Yellow Hybrid. Well, this deck doesn't want to die anytime soon, apparently. How many times do you have to hit it? I mean, we are playing RideGreymon, being able to put a yellow tamer down, but it's really interesting to see the Lotmons. So you have Lotmon that lets you, if you add a card to your, you may add that card to your hand, triggering a draw, which really does help out for Lotmon and being able to bring you down, and then you can recover and get some of your effects off. And then you even have this Lotmon on play if you have 3 or fewer security cards, and as Susie in play, secure recovery +1. So that's just how that's going to go. Using Susie is a very interesting tech here because on play, you may play one Lotmon from your hand without paying its memory cost. Start a turn. If you have 3 or fewer security cards, draw a card. So she helps keep your hand going the whole time. There's not many options here, which is very interesting to me, but I kind of see where they're going. They're using Venusmon to control out and then using WarGreymon to OTK with. Well, get a couple attacks in, the good stuff. And you want to be at 3 anyway, but the amount of tamers, then you can just hybrid game status is very easy in this deck. I like that they only have 5 options. It's very interesting to me. Usually wanted to have a little bit more, but understandable. And then you have like Pillowmon. This basically slows down Green's advances and Jessmon's advances as well. So I see where this is going, and I really enjoy it. Next deck we're going to talk about is another WarGreymon one. Running a spicy one of Gaia Force. Really good. I mean, we know what it's kind of doing from the first place we've already talked about. We have like Tai, WarGreymon X, you know, the fun, good stuff. There's nothing too crazy out of the ordinary here. So, except for adding the one Gaia Force and having the X antibody one that basically slows down your opponent from OTKing you back, not a bad trade-off. Next one is going to be the WereGarurumon. So WereGarurumon X antibody, we kind of know what this deck does from basically most of the format, last format. It really only teched in an Omnimon X antibody as its new spice, which is understandable. You know, you have Ice Wall, Blue Memory Boost, X antibodies, one Analog Youth, because, again, this deck does need to search out its pieces to get there. So it's not a bad trade-off or a bad time. You know, you have the Garurumon promo that lets you draw a card, and then you have WereGarurumon with the, you know, multiple checks that's be able to swing in and restamp. Not a bad trade-off. So, all in all, great deck. And, you know, the deck's not going anywhere anytime soon. Next deck we're going to talk about is the other WereGarurumon X. So, it looks like a carbon copy, so they're very similar in their list designs. There was really nothing very different about this, you can tell. There was just what rookie they used here was the difference. So, it looks like they used another BT5 Gabumon paired to they took out the starter deck 8-1. So it just comes down to quality and quantity. And I mean, there's also, by the looks of it, they took out an Analog Youth to put in Omnimon X antibody. So, okay. I see where the deck's going. The deck's not going anywhere. The deck is fantastic. It's an OTK deck with a lot of strength and a lot of powerhouse behind it. So, that's just kind of how it is. Next, we do have Mastemon. Mastemon is showing its face. And it's showing that it can be a powerful contender this format. And I really like seeing that because last format it didn't do too hot. But now it's still in an OTK format. And yet it's doing actually quite well. And I think this has the signature spice sauce that it needed. You know, I see like there's nothing too crazy that isn't like old stuff already. Mastemon is still a very powerful Digimon because it controls boards and pop stuff. And now it's not playing against Crossheart because of that Crossheart would just speed through you. Now, without having to fear about Crossheart, it has a better matchup setup, which is good for it. Outside of that, there's nothing too crazy out of the ordinary here. You know, you have Calling, Underworld's Calling to be able to, if you discard this card, draw a card, but you actually get to activate its main effect in Security, which basically gets, you may play one purple level 4 or lower Digimon from trash without paying its memory cost, which could lead to popping something or getting you a little body on board, which can pop something more with Mastemon's effect. So I see where the deck's going, and I really enjoy seeing these kind of lists because they're very innovative and they're very unique. So definitely keep this in mind when you're deck building. Next, we do have Imperialdramon. Imperialdramon hasn't really changed. The only thing I've seen here is Sanzoramon basically has jamming, so more early attacker pressure. Not a bad trade-off there. The Impanosauromon, basically a 3-cost vanilla if you're under effects that can't reduce. Then at least if you have this one, you can still play for 3 and then Jogras and then get into your Pyildramon for OTK potential. So I see where the deck's going. I have no objections with this list. This list is pretty solid, actually. Lobo for game, you know, Imperialdramon, 1 Death X to handle the mirror. So that's really good to see. Next is another WereGarurumon X antibody. Opting in 2 Hammer Sparks and 2 Cocytus Breaths for a little more control and extensions. I approve. It's very interesting to see that where they can add tech spots in sometimes, I swear. Next deck is Gallantmon. Gallantmon hasn't had a top in forever. I think I haven't seen one since like BT1. So it's really good to see Gallantmon actually bringing in the heat. So this is one of the new decks that basically got some boost in the form of 1 card, and that is WarGreymon. When digivolving, both players trash the top 3 cards of their deck. If a player has 5 or more cards in their trash, you may play 1 Gallantmon or Tocado from your hand or trash without paying its memory cost. This is basically what we needed for Gallantmon to really go off, is the self-mill to help get into basically pushing in for your lethal gain, but you also have to take in the account that it also helped get you a Tocado out or the Gallantmon to search you more pieces. So I see where it's coming from. And I definitely get behind 2 Crimson modes and 1 Omnimon X antibody. But all in all, great list. We know what the Growlmon stuff does by now. It's all DP reliant removal. It gets higher up. But basically, if you can control and pop one set first off with your Gallantmon with a 6,000 DP or even just hitting a 8,000 DP, and then you kill off the rest with this effect, now you're basically plussing and you get to trash the security out of it. So just really powerful deck that just now has its consistency because it just needed a way of playing one of its pieces that basically put you a turn behind. Now it actually keeps up. I like the Solarmon option because you are playing a Tamer heavy reliancy, so just something to think about there. But all in all, great deck. Next is D-Brigade, one of my favorites. So nothing too crazy out of the ordinary here. You got Darkdramons, 4 days. You got Death X's. We already know this. Commandramons, just filling the board, getting into pressure. You know, the new Decoy one really helps out rearrange your opponent's removals. Really needed. Chikurimon, basically, so that you can't be Death X back. And, you know, Grumble for Game, Sealdramon, Tankdramon, Darkdramon, Death X, Ultimate Flare, Pride Memory Boost. You know, Izzy and Kazu. Just expecting all these good stuff. And, you know, D-Brigade just comes back hitting harder and harder. So as much as they want to remove stuff, it doesn't always add up to being that. So, all in all, great. Now, we're back into the Garurumon territory. Outside of the norm here, 2 Hammer Sparks. Really the only difference in most lists. Next one is Setcon's back, baby. This one is using Grande Soul. So this one, suspend one of your opponent's Digimon, then return one of your opponent's suspended Digimon to the bottom of its owner's deck. So being able to, let's say, bottom deck something really does help out because it's another way of removing in a way that your opponent can't get that piece back anytime soon. Where most decks, you can get certain pieces back if you trash them. So it's good to see that you put it at the bottom. They're out of the way, out of sight, out of mind. Really good. Outside of that, the list isn't very different than most. I think the Seraphimon's really the only difference I've seen. So when Digivolving, if you have a Tamer in play, trigger recovery +1. And then on deletion, recovery +1. So not a bad trade-off there. I think all in all, the list is good. And I don't have any objections here. They're just really powerful Tamers and everything like that. You choke out with the Mimi and Karis because now your options get cheaper. So something to think about there. You got Death X for days. Then we have none other than the Mastemon GX, aka Armor Rush. So the deck's going to do what it wants to do. Being able to redirect attacks, if you can't kill it more than 3 times basically in one turn, you're going to have a bad time. But, you know, you have Mastemon GX, just a game finish round out. But basically what's happening here is Death X is really giving the deck the boost it needed. And that's about it. It's basically playing Death X. You know, you got Chimeramon, Magnamon, you know, Flamedramon, all the good stuff, all the goodies. So it's good to see where the deck is going. I'm not surprised on this. I like Giga Death. It's a very spicy attack. Suspend one of your opponent's Digimon and then place up to 10 of your opponent's suspended Digimon at the bottom of their opponent's deck in any order. This is basically for Bloom Hydra. Get it out of here. We don't need it kind of situation. Then you got Mega Death. I would have probably just went for Mega Death. It just does the same job. But that's just me. But Armor Rush is still a formidable foe. Then we do have, this looks like another Mastemon list. Yep, another Mastemon list. So, it's very interesting to see where they go with these Mastemon lists, I swear sometimes. You got like Mastemon going to be one of the best decks in the format. It's just a sleeper deck. It's very rogue, but control is always going to be viable in any format you play in that, especially is now single stack, and now you can answer and do things that your opponent's just not going to like. And I mean, just even having the Lucemon Chaos modes, the May Crackmon is really good. Just all in all, great stuff here. You know, Chaos Degradation and Flame Hell Scythe is just a drug in itself. So, just how that goes. And then, finally, we do have the last Setcon list. So, this one is red based with Setcon. So, I can get behind this. You know, Gaia Force is just a killer card. Crimson Blade really puts restrictions on Gallantmon and Digimon. But all in all, just great stuff. You got Mimi, Kari, Tai, and Kari. You know, all the goodies here. That's just not going away anytime soon. I love the Junimon Avenge Kidmon loop, basically being able to grab it back. And then if Junimon dies, that's fine. You'll use Calling from Darkness to grab it back and play the Avenge Kidmon to cycle back all your options. And then you're just good to go for a bit. So, all in all, decks are great, guys. What do you think about the first Ultimate Cup based around EX-3? You guys think it's kind of healthy? Do you think it's a disappointment? Let me know down in the comments, and hopefully you guys stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you next one. Peace!